Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome back to the channel where today I am going to be reviewing King of the Forgotten Darkness by American author Erik Goodwyn. Now, as you may or may not be aware, I actually interviewed Mr. Goodwyn a couple of weeks back for one of the Fantasy Talks Live episodes that I do for the channel and the podcast. The story being that Mr. Goodwyn approached me asking if I would be excited, kind enough to do a review of his book before it comes out, due to be published in 2025 by Roundfire Collective Inc., publishing in the UK in 2025. Now, originally, I wasn't very keen on the idea, but I started digging, started doing research. Mr. Goodwyn is a practicing psychiatrist with publications in the field. He's done talks over the world, and my curiosity got the better of me, and I said, yes, of course, please, thank you very much, send me the book. I did so, and he was very kind to come and do a talk, an interview for the channel. And not only that, he actually offered to do a follow-up interview, because at the time we talked, I had only read half the book, and I was going to do the review, and Susana Imaginario, a dear friend of the channel, was a little bit annoyed that she missed the talk, so we may do a three-way conversation at some point in the future, so that would be great. So now, King of the Forgotten Darkness. So, I'm going to try to do, best as I can, a spoiler-free review, because the book is not due until next year, so I don't want to spoil things out. I'm going to try my best. So, we follow Liam, who is a young man that lives in this place, dystopian, quasi-sci-fi futuristic place called Midworld, where he lives a sort of fairly sedate, mundane, repetitive life, where everything is ruled by AI and people have basically access to drugs on demand to sort of soothe the pain, whether it be physical or mental. Now, there's this other universe called RNT, which is your very sort of classic fantasy setting type world, and there used to be gates that connected the two worlds, but over time those gates have been closed, the connection has been lost, except through the Dreamstone, of which Liam comes across one of them, and off we go, and that's all I want to say about it. Now, I didn't quite know what to expect, so I actually possibly enjoyed more the dystopian, because Dr. Goodwyn has got something to say both about fantasy and about present day or potential sort of society going forward, and that comes across in the book. It's a bit of a bait and switch, because we start, like I said, in this sort of quasi sci-fi near future type thing, and then we move to a fantasy, traditional fantasy setting with talking birds and giants and Spriggans and King of the Unseelie. So there's a lot going on in the book, but I think I enjoyed better the sci-fi thing than the fantasy thing. One of the issues, not issues, there wasn't an issue, but, and this is something we talked about, Dr. Goodwyn, because of editorial constraints, he had limited sort of time to spend with the book. He couldn't exceed a certain number of pages. He very categorically said so. So I think the world building suffers a little bit because he wasn't given the space to make the fantasy world breathe and grow and, be what it needs to be. Having said that, I actually quite enjoyed reading a fantasy book that is not 800 pages long, because now I've started the second book in the Memory, Sorrow and Thorn series, and I'm glad to get something a bit more condensed, a bit more straight to the point. Possibly somewhere in between, not 350 pages, not 800, but something in between. I think the book would have benefited a little bit from that. Then, I can also see the intent of wanting to say something in the book that just happens to take place in a fantasy world. and Dr. Goodwyn is trying to say something about trauma, about what he knows. He's a psychiatrist, so I can see that, but I can also see that this book, even though it's self-contained in the way that it ends, there's got to be more. There's got to be more happening in this setting and in this place in Errantir, and maybe perhaps we should do a full spoiler discussion in 2025 at some point in the future, because there are things in there that I wanted to sort of delve a little bit deeper in, because maybe is Midworld the real world and is Errantir the fantasy place, or is Errantir the real world and is Midworld the fantasy place? Like, I'm not entirely sure about that. Maybe I missed the point there. Another sort of slight thing that I think could have been done better is our main protagonist, Liam. I mean, what do I know? But I think the character could have been a bit more fleshed out. I didn't really feel like he comes across as overly sympathetic or a character that we connect with. But having said that, his motivations are very clear, and why he does what he does and goes where he goes and acts in the way he acts. It is clear, but I guess in that balance between moving the plot forward and spending time with the character, maybe a bit more work could have been done there. Also, strangely enough, I thought there's obviously going to be a love interest in every fantasy story, and here we have one, and that one was interesting as well, because it's not your classical story of hero meets girl, they fall in love. No, there is this sort of, we used to have a relationship, it's failed, now we are sort of it's an interesting take. So all in all, I enjoyed the book. I think it was a nice take on a very sort of classical fantasy setting, perhaps somewhat encumbered by the lack of space to be a bit more organic, but there's certainly more to come, and Dr. Goodwyn said as much in our conversation. So I think the book was good, and it was a nice break, and I admire the effort to do something better other than just tell an epic fantasy tale. So I think that was clear, and the intent was obviously there. But I think it needs a bit more, and I'm curious to see what happens with these characters going forward, because we have some sort of exploration of trauma, but there's got to be a lot more to come. So I'm curious to see where that goes and how that happens. And yeah, it's got that slight feeling of inconclusiveness, inconcluded story. I'll leave you with that thought. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Thank you as usual, everyone, for watching. Please, if you haven't done so, like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think. Stay tuned for further conversations. Take lots and lots of care, and I'll see you soon. Bye.